Recorded live from the English Valley's History Center. It's October 18th, 2025. Here's Jackie.
Well, hello. I want to show you a couple of things from last week before we get started. This is the picture we talked about with Doc Larry on the roof on this side. Excuse me, you can't see it over there, above the Full of Pep sign. And this was of the parade in 1954. And old Doc was inside delivering a baby. And the other thing we talked about was these lists of old Doc's babies. We have all the names of all the ones that came from the newspapers at that time. If you want to see that, we have them all. And we talked about the one last week where old Doc delivered the baby while the smoke was rising above her knees. And that baby is over here. That'd be Shelley Kaufman, and she's on the 1967 list. We're going to talk about the diary now. The diary was written by my great-great-aunt, Mary Elizabeth Claypool Wade, who was known as Libby Wade. She is 75 years old in August of 1950. And here's a picture of Libby when she was young. August 11th, 1950. Cloudy and cool. Russell got 2 fish last night. I am cooking them for dinner. Mary Ann came along and stopped a while. She said that Dempsey was there last evening. I don't think he'll get her place. Something she has heard about parties, and she don't want any there. Russell Wade is Lib's youngest son. She lives in his house with him, and he often goes fishing during his time off from work. And here's a picture of Lib's 3 sons. Wayne or Perky Wade is on the left. Russell or Tyler Wade is in the middle. And Warren or Mike Wade is on the right. Mary Kelly Newhouse is a neighbor who often stops by to visit, and she rents out rooms in her house. Clarence or Dempsey Wade is engaged to Mary Magdalene Spratt from Parnell and is beginning his long career at a Manor Refrigeration. They did find someplace else to rent. And here's a picture of Dempsey at that time in his life. Mrs. McDonald stopped a while. Her son-in-law, Lillis, is at home now, both legs broken. According to the Williamsburg newspaper, Tom Lillis, Jr. of Williamsburg, was volunteering after the Williamsburg Town celebration, returning wooden plank timbers to the Williamsburg lumber yard when the pile rolled on his legs. After they got the timbers off, he could not stand up, and it was discovered that both legs were broken below the knee. And here is Tom Lillis was married to Alta McDonald, who was the father of Lib's friend. And here's the picture of Tom and Alta. Tom's mother-in-law was Tress McDonald, who was the housekeeper for Father Dugan at the Catholic Rectory a block north on Boland Avenue. And here's the picture of Trace McDonald. I have been making the pink rose hot pads, rather pretty. Received the salad selection of the Growing Cookbook. It has a lot of nice recipes in it. Mary said that Shirley Halls is to stay with Mary R. Eliza is going home. In the p.m., Mrs. Lulu Greenlee came. She lives near Chicago, with her daughter Maud and family. After some had gone, Mrs. Lockridge came too. She had been uptown. Shirley Halls was a member of the North English class of 1955. She was the daughter of Adolph and Edith Halls and was going to stay with Mary Regseger, Lib's friend and neighbor who has recently been released from the hospital after a bad illness. And here's a picture of Shirley Halls from the class of 1955. Eliza Moffat Regseger, the wife of Guido Regseger, had been staying with Mary, but Eliza is going home. and she's the woman on the right in this picture. Mrs. Lulu Kaufman Greenlee had formerly lived in the North English area and is in fact buried here now. She was an aunt to Bill Kaufman, Lib's neighbor across the street, so maybe she was in the neighborhood and wanted to visit. Addie Lockridge is Lib's 83-year-old widowed neighbor. From the Williamsburg newspaper, I learned that her sister was Emma Simmons of Troy Mills, and the two have been visiting in each other's home this summer, which Lib has also mentioned this summer in the diary. Saw in the record last night that Anthony Fitzwater died at Milan, Illinois. Russell thought that Theodore lives at Milan, Illinois. Mrs. Fitzwater is at Sadie Smothers's, or was not long ago. According to the North English record, Anthony Fitzwater had been a farmer for many years near North English and was buried at the cemetery at the Church of the Brethren near South English. Mr. Fitzwater has been staying with his son Theo at Milan, Illinois, and died in the hospital there. Mrs. Fitzwater was staying with another of her children, Sadie Smothers, at North English. And here's the clipping about Mr. Fitzwater's passing. Russell went away in the evening. Would like to find someone who has some sweet corn to sell. Hattie was over a while. Her Aunt Jenny had been there, but was going back to Moline yet this evening. She had been to Marengo getting her old age assistance. They had car trouble on the way up, and it cost $20 for repairs. Hattie Newberry Killian is Lib's 59-year-old friend who runs a boarding house on Boland Avenue. Hattie had a very serious bout with cancer earlier this year. Her aunt is Jenny Harper. And here's a picture of Jenny with her late husband Clyde Harper on the left, Clyde's sister Anna, her sister Clara, and her sister Clara's husband Willard Newberry. Jenny is on the left. August 12th, 1950. Cold and rainy, just light rain. Don't look like it would amount to much. I lit the oil burner. It was damp and cold. Russell got some sweet corn to Frankie Knipfer last evening. I got ready to cook, and I got it ready to cook, and I cooked some apples, made a glass of jelly, and finished a pair of pink rose hot pads. I think I'll send them away in the mail. Frankie Knipfer was the son of Lib's friend Millie Knipfer. And here's a picture of Frank and his wife Dolores Crawford Knipfer. Russell brought chicken for Sunday dinner and a letter from Anna. They don't think they will come now. Richard said they might come for Christmas. Arlen hasn't heard anything about his going into service. Some have been called down there for physical exams. Anna Wade Cray is Lib's daughter, who lives in Texas with her husband Richard Cray. They are citrus farmers. Their son Arlen is the middle son, and he is worried about being drafted. Here is a picture of Arlen with his parents at his wedding in 1954. His parents are on the right. Mary Newhouse came, and I sent my letter and package to the post office with her. I sent them to Mary Carter in Longview, Washington. I think she will like them. I'll have to make some more. They are pretty. Mary came back and visited a while. Mrs. Bolts was here too. Mary Kelly Newhouse often comes over to do small errands for Lib that she knows Lib can't do anymore, like run to the post office. Mary Welch Carter was an old friend of Lib's childhood from out at Yankee Point, north and east of town. Her parents were Daniel and Jane Welch. Mary now lives in Longview, Washington with her husband William Carter, who was adopted into the William Carter family after his family members were killed in a tragic fire. Elizabeth, or Lizzie Geiger Bolts, is Lib's 89-year-old widowed neighbor. Like Mary Newhouse, Addie Lockridge, and Hattie Killian, she rents out rooms in her house. I heard today that Nell Voss broke her ankle. I am sure pity her if she did. Nellie Voss, whose maiden name was Nellie Owen, was the mother of Owen Voss, Mildred Cox, and Bonnie Voss Smith. Nellie was a 60-year-old widow in 1950. Mr. Fitzwater was buried at the South English Cemetery today. Frankie Knipfer was one of the pallbearers. I bought eggs of Ruth Bursler this evening, 1.5 dozen at 25 cents per dozen. Hattie came over for a while. Clifford Cox has bought the Ernest Green place. Ruth Newberry Bursler was the sister of Lib's friend, Hattie Newberry Killian, and the mother of Levon Bursler, who lived at Hattie's with his new bride, Leona Morse Bursler. And here's a picture of Leona and Levon Bursler with their family in later years. According to the North English Record that week, Clifford and Mildred Cox bought a brick house in the northwest part of town, which I believe would be this house at 222 West Washington, where they resided for many years. Sunday, August 13th, 1950. Cloudy, cool, 64 degrees this morning. Russell is away. Virgil Hahn and Art Carter were to go with him, and they were all going to go together to the river. Russell's fishing buddies this morning were Virgil Hahn, and Art Carter. I got the work done up, read a while, and cooked a chicken. Harold and Barbara came up. They went to Cedar Rapids yesterday to the All-Iowa Fair. I was rather lonely. My foot hurt terribly. I think maybe the weather affects it. I lit the oil burner. Harold, or Stub Wade, is Lib's grandson, and Barbara is his daughter. And here's a picture from when he was in the service of Harold, or Stub Wade. And here is Barbara Wade with her great-grandma Lib down in Perky's front yard. Barbara's mother, Melva, and Stubbs' mother, Jenny Wade, also attended the All-Iowa Fair in Cedar Rapids yesterday, according to the newspaper that week. Russell got home about 5, had 6 channel cats. Jenny and Melva, Harold and Barbara came. Harold brought us each an ice cream cone. After they had gone, Lena came and then her mother. No one stayed very long. Then I wrote to Anna after Russell had gone away. It is still cold and cloudy. We need rain badly. Jenny Butterball Wade is Harold's mother and is married to Lib's oldest son, Perky Wade. Lena Wallace Wade is married to Lib's second son, Warner Mike Wade. Lena's mother is the widowed Stella Wallace, who is also a friend of Lib's. August 14th, 1950. Warmer and cloudy. Rain predicted for tonight. The weatherman is a poor guesser sometimes. The Dansdills moved in today across the way. We had fish for dinner. I saved one for Mrs. Bolts if she comes out. Mick and Rethel Dansdill have just moved into an apartment across the street from Lib. Lizzie Geiger Bolts often has meals with Lib and Russell as she is alone at dinner time. After dinner, Buster, Dr. Claypool, and his sister Luella Bailey came. He and his wife and 2 little girls drove through from Arizona last week. He expects to be called to the service most any time. Also, Luella's husband may have to go. Hard to tell who may be called. It is sure too bad. They visited out around Yankee Point, went to the cemetery, and went to see a good many there. He looks real well. They brought the children's pictures to show me. Dr. Lewis Benton Claypool, whose family's nickname was Buster or Buck Claypool, and his sister Luella Claypool Bailey were my dad's first cousins. They were the children of my grandma Bertha Geringer's brother Jonathan or Jaunty Claypool and his first wife Elsie Dayton. Lib's brother Benton was their grandfather. Here is a picture of Dr. Lewis Benton Claypool. Dr. Lewis Benton Claypool practiced medicine in Phoenix for many years, and with his wife Vivian had 4 girls: Babette, Annette, Brenda, and Johanna. Joanna was here last year to see me, and hopefully she will be bringing Annette sometime soon when she visits. Joanna and I also did the Parnell tour and the Yankee Point tour when she was here last spring. Dr. Claypool's sister Luella Bailey and her husband Derlin or Dooley Bailey lived in Illinois and adopted 2 children, Becky and Bobby. Luella and Dooley are buried at our family cemetery at Yankee Point, as Luella was raised here and attended high school in Parnell, and Dooley always thought our Yankee Point cemetery was really pretty and quiet. And here is a picture of Dooley Bailey when he was in the service. Art Lindsay's funeral is to be this p.m. at the Christian church here. He died in the Vets Hospital in Des Moines, I heard. I found the notice of Art Lindsay's funeral. He was a longtime resident of North English and a World War I vet serving in France and Germany. He was the clerk at the F.C. Allen drugstore for 21 years. And we just got something today from the F.C. Allen drugstore. We'll have to show it to you next week. In 1936, the family moved to Mount Vernon, where he operated the West End service station. Art Lindsay did. Lila rang and said our clothes were ready. Russell went over and got them. $3. Also brought some apples from Warren's. It is thundering, and we may get rain tonight. Lila Cobb is the mother of Glenn Cobb, who is Lib's grandson by marriage, and by marriage to her granddaughter Hazel Wade Cobb. Lila does the washing for Lib and Russell, as Lib can't operate their washing machine these days. August 15th, 1950. Not much rain last night. It's still cloudy and cool this morning. Russell heard last night that Mr. William Churchill died on Sunday. We hadn't heard it until he saw some of the funeral cards. The funeral is to be today. William or Will Churchill was Lowell Churchill's father and the grandfather of Joanne Churchill Harris. The Lowell Churchills live across the street from Lib. I cooked beets and apples and made a little jelly of the apple peelings. Clear as water. Good. Has the transparent flavor. My foot and leg hurts today. Buster thinks it is arthritis, as much as the injury when I fell. Since her great-nephew, Buster Claypool, was in town visiting, Lib asked him about her health problems. A gang of men, 100 or more, are working on the railroad, putting down new rails, etc., so heavier freight can be hauled. They are camped down there and are going to the beer joints pretty often, I heard. I hope they don't get quarrelsome. The picnic carnivals came in today, and another group is over at the ranch. It was real hot today. We didn't get enough rain, but it helps. The carnival has arrived for the Creamery Picnic, which will be held at the city park soon. And I found an ad for 1950, and this is the entertainment that was promised that year. Geraldine and Denny Oliver, the children of Mr. and Mrs. Leslie Oliver of Williamsburg, will be one of the main attractions at the evening celebration of the North English Creamery Picnic on August 16th and 17th. There will be a basket dinner on the grounds, and lunch will be served all during the celebration. There will be rides, concessions, free acts, comedy, and clowns. Thursday night, there will be a display of fireworks. Other acts will be by Nevin the Magician, Joel Franklin and his dog acts, and a roller skating team, and a juggling act, and Millersburg's Little German Band. Dennis Oliver was also in the local paper this week. Did you see the article? We'll talk about that next week. Russell went to Goldie Robu's and got a basket of sweet corn tonight, and then went to Williamsburg with Mildred. Goldie Robu was a cousin to my grandfather, John Geringer, and was the mother of longtime resident Gene Harris. Mildred Reese is Russell's girlfriend. Minnie Zilmer was over for a while. Mrs. Carson is not doing very well. Her limbs are swollen and her face is puffy too. Mrs. Bertha Stoner is there. John Birkenbein left yesterday. Raymond King was to take him to Mason City to the IOF home. Minnie Patterson Zilmore is Liv's neighbor across the street. She is telling her the news of the neighborhood. Mrs. W.C. or Belle Carson, who lives just west of Minnie, has cancer and is not well at all, and her husband W.C. Carson is not very well either, so they have Mrs. Bertha Stoner in the home to take care of them. W.C. Carson was the owner of the clothing store uptown. And here's a picture of W.C. and Belle Carson, and Pearl Warner's in the middle. This picture is on the wall in the History Center. John Birkenbein was Raymond King's uncle, and Raymond King was the grandfather of Diane King, Barbara King, Susan King, Patty King, and Bill King, who graduated from English Valley schools. According to Find a Grave, John Birkenbein never married. In his later years, he drove a gas truck and lived his last few years in Sigourney, passing away at the Bales Rest Home in 1958. That's the end of the diaries. A lot of work goes on behind the scenes to keep the History Center operating. This includes cataloging sessions, creating displays, coordinating and preparing for monthly programs, responding to requests for family and community histories, keeping up the social media, finances, cleaning, maintenance, and providing treats for programs, and making this program possible. There's a whole lot more activity that supports the center operations, and it is largely contributed through time and effort by the board of directors and volunteers. The History Center is composed of Dave Jackson, President, Scott Romine, Vice President, Bonnie Romine, Secretary, Don Banning, Treasurer, and Directors Carolyn Elwood, Shelley Gerard, Alan Ackerman, and Dan Best. Please send donations to the History Center at P.O. Box 70, North English, Iowa, 52316. The next History Center program is on Sunday, October 26th at 2 p.m. with Phil Hester, our local comic book creator. This is a reminder that the next alumni luncheon group will meet at 11:30 a.m. at the Main Street Pub and Grub in North English on Monday, October 27th. Please contact Linda Holden Carter or Alice Floring Stramer for reservations. Our feature story is on Dean and Mary Best. The information in this next story was taken from the North English 150-year-old book, authored by Scott Romine, from the newspapers of Iowa County, and with the help from their son, History Board member Dan Best, and from my own memories. In the late 1970s, I worked at Don and Jerry's Cafe in North English, which was across the street from Best Furniture. Every day I would stare at the beautiful lamp in the window, wishing it was my own. One day I went over to see Dean Best about buying the lamp, and to make a long story short, walked out with enough furniture to fill our apartment above Geraldine's shoe store just up the street. I had to go up to the bank and get a note to pay for it all, which was quickly okayed by our local bankers, Bruce and Verdon Tarbox. I still have the bookcase and a metal cupboard for my dishes, and this beautiful lamp. Wilbur Dean Best was from Cincinnati, Iowa, and his bride, Mary Maud Griffin, was from Montezuma. Dean and Mary were married on March 20th, 1946. He served in the Army and was discharged in October of 1946. Dean then decided to go to college, and he spent a year as an apprentice at the Clements Funeral Home in Fort Madison. According to their son Dan, the couple met at Schaefer Pen Company in Fort Madison, where Mary worked and Dean did part-time work. Dean then went to the Carpenter Mortuary College in St. Louis and graduated in 1948. Dean spent another year as an apprentice at that same funeral home in Fort Madison. You might remember from our previous stories that there was a furniture and funeral store on Main Street in North English owned by the Mahana family since 1886. The store is the fourth store from the left in this picture. Curtis Mahana started the store, and then his son Ross Mahana owned it until he died in 1946, which we explained in an earlier broadcast. After Ross Mahana died, his son-in-law, Jack Ross, who was married to Marjorie Mahana, took over. Jack Ross was not a licensed embalmer, and the state law required there to be one, so he had to hire someone to do the embalming. Dean Best was hired as a licensed embalmer and began working at Mahana Funeral Home in 1951. The Best family now lived in North English. In that same year, Dean and Mary lost a baby named Mary Rebecca Best. And here's a picture from 1954 with Jack Ross, Dean Best, and Bud McCarter, who worked in the Mahana Furniture and Funeral Store. In 1955, the Dean Best family, which now included daughter Patty and son Ed, moved to Marengo. In Marengo, Dean worked for Harrison Furniture and Funeral Service, and they were involved in community activities. When they lived in Marengo, they had another son named Dan. And here's the picture of Dean from the Marengo newspaper when he worked at Harrison's. Back over in North English, the Powell family from South English bought the Mahana funeral business in 1959 from Jack Ross and established their business further north on Main Street, where it still is today. We will do a story on the Powells another time. In 1962, Dean and Mary Best family came back to North English to operate the former Mahana Furniture Store at 124 South Main as Best Furniture. Tricia Blaylock Garrity remembers that she and her new husband at that time, Gary Blaylock, were the first customers to purchase their furniture from Best Furniture. When the Best family moved back to North English, the family lived across the street from us at 220 East Washington Street. And I remember playing with our Barbie dolls with my sister Rita and their oldest daughter Patty Best. We also had a favorite pastime of reading the Sears Christmas catalog and the J.C. Penney's Christmas catalog and picking an item on each page that we might be interested in having for a gift. At the urging of Father Raymond Pasha, who had built a new, larger Catholic church on Broad Street, the Best family bought the former St. Joseph Catholic Church and Rectory on Boland Avenue and opened the Best Funeral Home in the church and made the rectory their home in June of 1964. And here is a picture of the church before they bought it and the rectory. Their last child, Barb Best, was born after they moved back to North English. Their son Dan remembers that when he moved to North English, he already had a friend here named Joel Miller. Joel's parents, young Doc Larry and Johnette Miller, were friends with Dean and Mary Best. The children also made friends with all the Smoky Row neighborhood kids just a block away, and all the children graduated from English Valley's high school. Dean and Mary Beth sold Best Furniture Home to Powell's in 1981 and continued on with their furniture store on Main Street until 1991 when they retired. The four Best children include Patty Best, who was a teacher at English Valley's grade school for her entire career. Ed Best, who passed away recently, was married to Kim, and their family lives in the Des Moines area. Ed was an avid outdoorsman and sold carpet for many years. Dan Best was in the furniture business with his parents and later worked in other furniture stores and is now on our English Valley's History Center board. Barb Best attended AIB in Des Moines and worked in the Des Moines area. Barb is married to John Wright, and they raised their family in the Des Moines area. We learned from the diaries that in the 1940s and 50s, oftentimes families had a couple days of visitation at the home of the deceased, and funerals were held in the area churches. With the advent of the funeral homes, families were able to choose to have the visitations at the funeral home, and mostly just for one day now, or maybe even just for a short time before the service. Many times the services are held at the funeral home also instead of going to any church. And as we have recently learned from our broadcasts, cremations were very rare in those days, but much more common now. Up until the 1970s, both Best Funeral Home and Powell Funeral Home had ambulance services in North English. Funeral homes were called into service because they had dependable large cars and cots to carry people. Most funeral homes stopped the services when the counties started their own ambulance services. Dean Best also expanded his business in the furniture store into other areas. For example, Scott Romine remembers purchasing a flower for prom from Dean Best at the furniture store. The Bests had an arrangement with Pearson's Flowers in Cedar Rapids to get funeral flowers and other flowers for their businesses. The flowers were sent to North English with the Cedar Rapids Gazette carrier. And here's a picture of Dean and Mary Best and family from the United Church Directory. From the left, Mary, Patty, Ed, Dean, Dan, and Barb is in front. Dean and Mary Best were highly involved in their community. Dean was a member of the Masons, the Odd Fellows, the Rotary Club, and of course the Commercial Club, organizing community events. Dean was also a member of the English Valley Nursing Center board when it opened in 1973. Fortnightly Club was one of Mary Best's community activities. This picture is on the wall at the History Center. Mary Best is the fourth person in from the right in a pantsuit and hat. Mary Best was also involved in Rebecca Lodge, the same lodge that Libby was in, Eastern Star, PEO, and Commercial Club activities. The Best family were also one of the host families for Linda Wilsden from Scotland as our foreign exchange student in 1973 and her brother John Wilsden in the summertime a few years later. The Best family later enjoyed a trip to Scotland to see Linda and her family. And here's another picture from the community center walls. This one is Phil Terrell and Dean Best at the bakery owned by Bob and Ethel Castile. Dan Best described his parents this way. They were nice people and very caring. I think they were the best. Correspondence. About the feature on old Doc Miller, Mark Claypool from Sigourney said, "Jackie, what a great job. I remember old Doc treating me with the smell of pipe tobacco. His way of thinking is something that should be done today." Jill Miller-Millar said, "Thanks for the memories, Jackie. I miss them every day." As soon as I got done reading, everyone realized I had not mentioned the other nurses in the clinic. I remember that Mary Hester was a real gem.
You're right.
And later on, Sandra Aldrich worked at the clinic too and was so good to all of us.
You're right there.
I didn't show that picture of the telephone operator, Daisy Doherty, last week. Old Doc always let her know where he was headed. And she is in the back row, the second one from the right. Alice Floring-Stramer from Watkins said, "Despite the picture glitches, it was still a great podcast. regarding the people of North English, whose voice announces the beginning and the end. Strong and nice. Those helpers behind the scenes must be comforting to have nearby. Thank you for keeping eager audiences. Everyone on the History Center board has been a great help, and my in-house audience is great too. Trish Montross, Blaylock Garrity, and Susie Allison Lumberg both remarked that old Doc Miller delivered many babies in the Millersburg area with the help of their ancestor Fern Montross. Sometimes Fern would have to deliver babies by herself if Doc Miller did not arrive in time. Fern Montross was the step-grandmother of Trish and the step-great-grandmother of Susie. Trish said that she herself was born on the kitchen table in Millersburg as the roads were muddy. Another funny story about Trish's birth is that a Millersburg teenager, Georgia Lortz Warner, had not seen a baby born, so she came and stayed at their house for 3 days to await the blessed event. But Georgia left after waiting that long, as the baby had not yet come. The nurse, Grandma Fern Montross, was also on the scene for 3 days, sleeping in the same bed as Dorothy before baby Patricia arrived, which Dorothy did not like because Fern snored. We are also interested in learning about historical English Valleys items that you might wish to donate to the History Center. Please contact Dave Jackson, Scott Romine, or any board member to donate. Goodbye.
And that is a wrap.
Good job.
Thank
Good job,
you.
Jackie.